Hello, and welcome to another evening of Small Screen Fun. I'm Mary Lou Oleski, the director of the Hopkins Center for the Arts, and it's my privilege to launch a new series tonight featuring curated films by Dr. Shamell Bell. Tonight, Dr. Shamell Bell launches this series, which will continue into the next year, with The Hate You Give. And it is being screened in conjunction with two classes that she's teaching, Black Lives Matter here at Dartmouth and Black Radical Movement at Harvard. In the spring and the fall, she'll continue to be teaching about movement and rituals and Black traditions, and a series of conversations will continue to align with those courses. Dr. Shamell Bell is a street activist, she's a scholar, she's a mother, she's a friend. We're happy to be collaborating with her. Thank you, Shamell, for being with us, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to feature these films and guests at Hop at Home. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Shamell Bell, and I just am here to welcome you. And I am just honored to be here in space with all of you. First and foremost, I want us to take a brief moment to get in contact with our breath, right? So if you could all just close your eyes. We are in a really difficult moment right now. So we're going to take a moment to breathe it in, let it out, and let it go. Follow your natural breathing as we have this election cycle coming up. There's a lot of anxiety, and I want us to just be grounded in this space. Let's have a moment to think of all the lives that we have lost. Let's take a deep breath in together. You're at home. Yes. Okay, and let's open our eyes. All right. So now I want to welcome everyone into the space. In particular, I want to welcome some incredible guests that I get to call family. So this isn't a panel, you all. This is a family reunion, as Angie Thomas calls it. So I want to first introduce George Tillman Jr., a film director, screenwriter, film producer. He's just an all-around incredible person. You will know him from films like Soul Food, Men of Honor, and The Hate You Give. And I want you to welcome George Tillman. I also want you to welcome Angie Thomas, born and raised and lives in Jackson, Mississippi. I have some people in Mississippi. And she is a former teen rapper turned, now you know her as the author of the debut novel, The Hate You Give. And now it's the film that we're talking about today. So let's thank Angie Thomas. And next we have Karan. And so she's the co-founder of the Kendrick Academy. She graduated from Spelman College in Atlanta, and that was important to me because I always wanted to teach or be at Spelman. And most importantly, she's been in films such as The Hate You Give and Just Mercy. So I want you to welcome Karan to the family. Yeah, so what we're gonna do, I don't want anybody to feel any pressure like this is a panel. Honestly, I'm running this like I'm running my classroom. How this happened is basically, I wanted to have the opportunity for my students to engage with artists that are doing revolutionary movies. And I think this is a revolutionary movie. So this is just a time for us to have a radical dialogue, for us to talk about some of our favorite memories, some of our favorite moments. And so I'm going to introduce the first clip. And the first clip is George's favorite clip. So let's roll it.
Now, when it happens, don't act mad. You gotta look calm. Answer their questions, but don't tell them nothing extra. Keep your hands out your pockets. You drop something, leave that shit where it's at.
Maverick.
Leave that stuff where it's at. My bad. Now, one day, y'all gonna be with me, and you best bet we gonna get pulled over. Now, that don't mean I did something wrong. Maybe I made a mistake driving, or maybe I ain't do nothing at all. You gonna see me with my hands like this on the dashboard. Come on. Now you keep your hands posted, because moving makes the police get all nervous. If I ain't with you, you ask for me. It can get real dangerous, so don't argue with them. But keep your hands where they can see them. This is how you gonna act. We straight?
I was 9 years old when I first got the talk. 7, my half-brother, was 10. Sakani was 1.
Now, just because we gotta deal with this mess, don't you ever forget that being black is an honor, because you come from greatness. Now, this is the Black Panther 10-point program. This our own Bill of Rights. I want you to learn it, because I'm gonna ask you about it, I'm gonna quiz you.
Really, Maverick?
Know your rights. Know your worth. You understand?
Wow. So this speaks to the way that we are connected as family, because Angie and George, we all picked that scene. And so I just want, George, if you could start for me, just speak a little bit about how that felt to film that, or what you felt when you read it. Just riff for me.
Well, I mean, that scene is definitely, I mean, it's right out of the book. So it's one of the first scenes that I was able to connect to, because, you know, my father, you know, coming from Mississippi, actually, and being involved in the protests in the 60s in Milwaukee. And, you know, that's that conversation I had with my father. I had that conversation with my uncles, later having that conversation with my son. So it's like those things, it felt like the right thing to do to open up the movie, you know, because that scene was a little bit later in the book, but I remember the screenwriter was like, hey, let's open up the movie this way, because there's a lot of people that don't understand what the talk is. So they don't understand how this is things that happen inside an African-American family, inside an African-American community. So when casting that particular scene, the young kids in the movie that played a young Starr and a young Seven, I didn't audition them for that scene, you know. So that was that first time. That scene, when we shot it, was the first time they actually heard that conversation. So you get the real,
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah. And then in terms for Russell, who's delivering those lines, he could never get through a rehearsal, you know. I had the older Starr, Amanala, you know, and the older Seven rehearse that. So they would know that going forth, but the young kids, that was their first time. So it was a really emotional scene, and it still becomes emotional when I see those two young kids taking that. And I really wanted to start the scene outside, because it's like kids playing basketball outside, people having an everyday talk, and then the camera moves inside like it's an everyday conversation, having breakfast, but it's an everyday conversation for us. So that was
brilliant.
yeah, I really wanted to capture what Angie set up in the book, and I did my best, and I really felt like everybody in the cast really delivered as well.
I love that. So Angie, George spoke about how he shifted a little bit with this scene. Can you talk about how you felt about the scene, or how it was in the book, or just how it impacted you?
Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant scene to open the film with, because at that time, The Hate You Give, the novel, had been out for maybe a year and a half, and I'd been touring a lot and meeting a lot of people. And one thing that stood out was that white parents were always telling me that they were surprised that Black parents had to have these conversations with their kids. Like, it was like mind blowing to them. It was a reality check for them. And so when they told me that's what they wanted to open the film with, it felt right, because we're showing that you're seeing these three innocent children who, this is their new reality now. Suddenly a bit of their innocence has been taken away with this talk, and I thought it was a powerful way to open up the film. And also in the book, I didn't get to show the scene as much. Starr references it, and like, I think it's the second chapter at the beginning, she references it. But we don't see like her at that age getting it and what went through her mind so much at that age. And I felt as if that added another layer to The Hate You Give overall as a story, both the book and film combined, to give my readers and the viewers a bit more understanding of this family and these characters and the things they went through. And also, I think there's something really powerful about seeing Maverick, aka Russell Hornsby, sitting there, this guy with these tattoos and the cornrows, which, people stereotypically view him as being a threat or danger, where he's sitting here having this tender moment with his children to tell them about the real threat in the world when they leave those four walls of their house. So the juxtaposition of that for me was so powerful, and I think they did a phenomenal job with it.
Absolutely powerful. And it's something that we were talking about in a few of my students when we were live streaming this. The idea that we have to have a talk with our children. However, that talk sometimes doesn't work. It doesn't matter. It's like sometimes we say these talks, we're raising our children this way, and then they can still get shot. So I think that showing that this is something that happens in the African-American home and the way that you all did it was just absolutely brilliant. I want to also, Karen, do you have anything else you wanted to add to them? I'm going to get to the next clip, but I just wanted to get your voice in here and say hello, how you resonated with it.
Hey, thanks for having us. Thanks for having this conversation. Yeah, I think that one of the things that shines through in the book, and that's also amplified in the storytelling in the film, is humanity. Angie talked about it a little bit when she said, this is someone looking at Maverick, he's someone who could be perceived as a threat, but here he is loving his children. We see love in action. And I think that so much of what we are experiencing today is because we don't often have the opportunity to experience the humanity of a person whose experience is not our own. And so we start out coming into a safe space and having the opportunity to engage parent to parent, child to child, family to family. And I think that's just one of the things that makes this story so powerful, and one of the things I loved about this scene.
You know what? I knew that you had something powerful to add. I know that wasn't a clip, but I was like, I felt it. I didn't know what it was. I was like, you have something. So that's why I love to have these like family gatherings. I don't like to have like, this is your question, this is your questions. I just want us to talk. This is what I do to my students in my classes. So y'all have a little piece of my class right now. Because I'm like, if you're saying anything for me as a question I asked you, then you have the wrong idea of what this is. This is having a conversation. I'm learning just as much from you as I could ever teach you. So thank you so much. I want to go to the next clip. You can go ahead and roll it and we'll talk about it afterwards.
I'm so sorry, Daddy. This is my fault. I never should have gone on TV. I should have stayed quiet.
Everybody get up out the car. Get out the car and line up on the grass. 9.7 of the 10-point program. Say it. Stop crying and say it.
We want an immediate end to police brutality.
Finish it.
In the murder of black people and people of color and oppressed people.
By what means?
By any means necessary.
By what means?
By any means necessary.
By what means?
By any means necessary.
So why you gonna be quiet? What does that say?
Reasons to live give reasons to die.
Yeah. You, your brothers, and your mother are my reasons to live and die. I gave each of you power in your names. 7 perfection, starlight, Sakani joy. Use it. So when you're ready to talk, you talk. Don't ever let nobody make you be quiet.
Wow. So I still get goosebumps hearing that scene. And what's so incredible about that is that we, again, many of us all picked that same scene. So they were like trying to like, can we have some more scenes? I'm like, no, this is perfect. I want to be able to tell the audience when I said, listen, I'm not going to ask questions. I want to find out what their favorite clips are. And I kept doing the same clips because they asked me what my favorite clip was. So what I want to point out about this clip is the fact that I had never seen the Black Panther 10-point program in a film that I can recall, especially for youth. And then also this idea of the power of the name, right? And I just want to just shout out, like my son's name was Say Johnny. And when we saw that Sakani was the name, we flipped out. So I definitely want to just talk to Angie, you know, about like this scene and just everyone, just let's have a conversation about how the depth of this scene and why it's so important for our children to be raised up knowing these histories that are absolutely happening in the present moment.
Yeah. Shout out to Russell Hornsby again. The power he brought to that scene blows me away every single time. It's the embodiment of Maverick as a father, as a character, but also the embodiment of so many Black fathers who, in one way or another, they instill power in their children, whether it's through their names or whatever. They instill some sort of power in their children in a world that has often made them feel as if they've been stripped of their power, you know? And so the names in the book, when I named these characters, I was purposeful with every single name. And I'm about to do a plug real quick, but you get a little more insight into why I chose the names in my new book, Concrete Rose, which is a prequel to The Hate U Give. It comes out January 12th, and it's about Maverick when he was 17. And we get to see some stuff about these names in that book. But that scene, again, it wasn't exactly like that in the book. And it's one of those things that I wish I did exactly like that in the book, where Maverick tells them about the power in their names and reminds them, you know, don't let anybody make you be quiet, you know. But I think too, another important factor for me with giving these kids these names like Starr, Seven, and Sakani, these are not quote unquote traditional names, but when we name our children in the Black community, so often outsiders give us flack if it's not a quote unquote traditional name. And suddenly we have to explain it or it's made fun of, or it's this or that, when the fact of the matter is a lot of times those names have meaning. There's a purpose behind them. And just because it doesn't fit what you deem normal doesn't mean it's not normal. So I really wanted to show the power in those names, because I knew there were going to be people like, why is that kid named Seven? Why is this kid named Sakani? Why is this kid named Starr? Well, here's why. Make you hopefully rethink the kids in your life that you are often writing off because you don't know the purpose behind their name. And by Maverick giving his kids purpose in their names, he's hopefully giving them purpose for their lives in that journey of life, you know. So it was so important for me that that scene existed. And then also, like you were saying, with the 10-point program, we don't see a lot about that. In fact, there are people still to this day who, perceive the Black Panthers as a terrorist organization. But you wouldn't have free breakfast in schools right now if it weren't for the Black Panthers.
I was just about to say that. We on the same wavelength.
Yes. So there's so many misconceptions about them. And I have to admit, it was one of those things where I didn't realize until after the fact that the 7th point in the 10-point program is about police brutality. And here we have a child named Seven. It ended up working out perfectly in a way. So no, I didn't plan that from the get-go. But
wow, that is so powerful.
I was glad that they put that scene in and had him bring that up about the 10-point program. I've had a lot of the Black Panthers reach out to me and say, thank you for that, because if nothing else, it's made young people research them more and look into that more, because the things that we're dealing with right now were addressed in the 10-point program all those years ago. And there was a plan at one point. So we're not starting from scratch. Our ancestors have paved the way already. We just got to dig a little deeper and find the roadmaps.
Wow. So this is why art is so powerful. The fact that you just gave a whole history lesson, and now young students want to go and dig deeper. Like, I think that that's the most powerful thing about this movie, and why I was just so excited that divinely I was just involved in it in any kind of way, because to me, it just felt like a moment where we can use art to reflect the times, as Nina Simone encourages us. So George, what do you feel about this?
Well, you know what, that scene is always, it's so emotional for me to watch that scene. I mean, it actually starts for me with Starr in the car, just her saying, I'm sorry. And is a character, is a person who thought she did the right thing. She stood up a little bit and got her voice on television. She said what actually happens. And then the very next scene after that, she sees her father have the whole issue with the police and right in front of his family. And she's backed up against the wall. And then you can just hear her retreating back into the character that she was in the beginning of the movie. But she has a strong parent, a strong backbone who really brings her sense of hope, her sense of pride, knowing that, at the end of the movie, Angie calls her like she's powerful, she's a superhero. And that's really, really who she really is throughout the movie. So in that scene, it always starts in the car with her crying, I'm so sorry, Daddy. And I only think I did 2 takes of that. Everybody was in the groove by that time we did that scene. And it's just one of those scenes that I'm proud of, and proud of the writing and the book and the actors. And, it's very hard when you find scenes in your work like it's the real deal,
That's it.
It's authentic to the 10th power. There's no BS in it. Working in Hollywood, there's a lot of BS, you know what I mean? So this is one of those scenes and projects that is all authentic, you know what I mean? So I'm very proud of what everybody did in that scene.
And last but not least, beautiful Karan.
Well, I think they said it. I was sitting here, I'm like, Karan, you've seen this film how many times, and why are you fighting back tears right now? Like, why?
Same. I was trying to act like
right? I have a little tissue right here. But I think they both said it. I think one thing, in addition to everything that they said, that's really powerful is, the power of perspective. How when we tell our own stories, we share parts of ourselves that you can never see because you don't know they're there, right? And so to see the magnitude of a man, of a dad empowering his children, reminding them of who they are, and then also to see our history told in the way that we know it. The Black Panthers were not, this militia, these terrorists. They were people who were working together to build the community. And so to have that instilled and have us educated at the same time, I think it's just powerful on so many levels. And I think that's what happens when we tell our stories.
And something you said so key, both you and Angie, is that the Black Panthers created these amazing programs like the Breakfast Program, the 10-point program, but that's when they became the most dangerous. Do you know that?
Yeah.
It wasn't that they had the guns and different things like that. They're like, okay, they're being violent, right? But it was when now we have women, infants, and children, WIC, those programs that gave us milk and eggs and cheese, if you were, low income, that came from the Black Panther Party. And so that is when the infiltration became so highlighted, is because they had the audacity to self-determine, the audacity to care for their people, instead of just creating the system where you're working and you're always under the poverty level. And so, yeah, I think that it was so powerful for you to put that in. And so we're going to look at one final clip. And I will just say there is this clip that we're going to see. And so let's run the clip and we'll talk about it afterwards. So yeah, we were just talking about that clip of you just walking into the church, and how that is just so many ranges and so many points that we can pull out. Also there's a name that was dropped, and like I said before we got cut off, I did not plan this to be the clip. So yeah, I just want us to, as a family, just talk through this scene. What's coming up for us? Let's start with you, Karan, since you picked it.
I love when I read the script, I was like, who is Shamell Bell? So that was dope. When I found out, I was like, yes, talk about family. Like, yes, family. Yes, come on in here. So I thought that was really, really cool. And of course, a wonderful quote. I think that I love, it's kind of like love, and also it's heartbreaking to see how there's never a moment where we can just be, right? We have to grieve and comfort, but then we also have to be social activists in the midst of grief. And we have to take on a level of responsibility that moves us forward in the midst of social. So it's just so much going on. And I think it points to how, so often people feel like, oh, they're overreacting, or, oh, but it's like, when you think about all the things coming at you, how can you not respond in a way? How can you not feel those things? How can you not be outraged or incredibly crushed and just trying to be, because you're not ever really afforded that opportunity? And then with Aisha, when I first read it, I was like, she really about to turn out a funeral. Is that what's happening? Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper and see what's really going on. And what I found is, this is a woman who's hurt. When else can she see and connect with her son? That's what she really wants. She wants to hold him and embrace him. And even in this moment, she cannot. And it points to, what hurt looks like. Sometimes when we see hurt show up in a Black woman, we dismiss it or discount it, or because we just don't understand it. But sometimes hurt is screaming loud enough to at least be heard by someone, even if you're not understood. And I think that's what's happening in this moment with Aisha. So I appreciate that we don't just dismiss her, right? We don't just discount her. In the hands of Angie and George, she's a whole woman. And in this moment, she's a whole woman who is hurting. And we're allowed to witness what that hurt looks like and how it plays out.
That's so good. And it just sent chills down my whole entire body, because it speaks to intergenerational trauma. It speaks to the fact that we should not be respectable at some points. We should actually really look into where that hurt might be coming from. And so that was powerful that you said that. I'm going to go to Angie.
Yeah. Aisha is one of my favorites. And again, I feel like I'm plugging the new book, but I really get to explore her in Concrete Rose.
Plug your George new book, girl. Plug it in my classroom.
George has read it. And
I need to read it.
Okay, I will hook you up. I will hook y'all all up.
Thank you.
Yes, I got you. But family gets it. I will send it to y'all. But I get to explore her more in Concrete Rose, and we get to understand her a little more, because she's the character. I think the two characters I was asked about the most by my readers were Maverick and then Aisha, followed by Carlos. And the thing about Aisha is, I know so many Aishas, and the first thing people would like to say about them is, "Oh, they ghetto." No. First of all, just because she walks in the room and command that her presence be noticed does not mean she's ghetto. That means she's got some confidence. Can we say that? Can we
Speak
start
on
saying that?
it.
Like,
Speak on it.
I am definitely not confident enough to walk into a funeral and holler out. You got to have some confidence to do that. But also, yes, she is hurt. She has some pain. And I got to ask George to hook me up with these deleted scenes, because one of my favorites was the extended version of that scene. I saw it like when y'all were filming. And like the whole thing didn't make it into like with Seven and Aisha in that moment. And then another of my favorite scenes, and I think it's on the deleted scenes when you get the DVD or Blu-ray or whatever, is Aisha at Seven's graduation.
Mm-hmm.
Like it gives us so much more into that character, and I absolutely love those scenes. Those are some of my favorites. But at that moment right there, it revealed a lot about that relationship between mother and son, but also it reveals something about Lisa too, and who she is and how she accepts this situation, and the woman she is in this situation. So one of my favorite parts of the story in general is the complex family, because in Black families there is that complexity. It's like, is that your full sister, half sister, step, whatever, blah blah blah. It's like my mom's granddad used to say, there's no such thing as step. He said he was her step granddaddy. He was like, but I don't bring steps everywhere I go, so I'm just your granddaddy. So we have these complicated at times family dynamics, and I think that scene shows it in a powerful but also in a way that will hopefully resonate with the viewer and make you feel something for Aisha in that moment.
That's beautiful. And take us a little bit, George.
No, that scene was is one of the most difficult scenes to shoot, because what made it easier, with actresses like Miss Kendrick here, she's amazing, just working with her, and always ready. What made it difficult was, it was Angie. I think Angie was one of your first days on the set, and it was like everybody was in one scene. It was like two families, the introduction of Issa Rae. You got King still threatening Starr. You have the minister, and you have the protests inside the church. It was just a lot of things going on, and we didn't have a lot of time to do it. But since everybody was so talented and so prepared, it just moved, and it made it easier, and it made it very, it felt very, in a sense, easy. It just felt like you really was in a place where it was really real. And I just think there's a lot to be done. It's the one scene that had everybody in it, really, in one scene, and you establish both families, but the center of it is, will Starr speak? And we never lost that with all those other relationships, things going on. In this, it's very important because it's a setup of Aisha, almost, where we identify that relationship just with looks that we'll see later on when Aisha makes the big choice at the end of the film. So it was a very tough scene to do because everybody was there, but we're a family and we got through it. And your contribution to that was really huge, Shamell, because our relationship go back for many, many, many years. So when this book came to me, you were the first person that I talked to after me and Angie had that conversation about, like, hey, I just felt like this was a movie that we haven't seen out in Hollywood. I just finished a movie previous to that. I say it was one for them. And I know you always do one for them, one for yourself. So I knew I had my relationship at Fox been there for since Soul Food, since 97. So it was like, now's the time to make the film that I wanted to make. And I wanted to have somebody who can inform and be there. So it was very important to have your name in that scene.
Yeah, no, that was crazy. I didn't even know that my name was going to be in the scene. Can we talk about how I was consulting and I had chills because it was credited to someone else? Because people started saying after I said it at in an interview in Al Jazeera, actually white supremacists picked it up and they had websites and all types of things, like crazy things. And so it was trauma for me. So when I was reading it, we had to sit in the room and I couldn't leave it. And I was like, oh. And your assistant saw me and was like, what's wrong? And I was like, oh, no, I said that. And she Googled it. And then it wasn't until the editors started saying, we're going to have a shirt. Shamell Bell said it best. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They kept walking around. When they met me, they were like, Shamell Bell said it best. And I was like, what are you talking about? So it's crazy that, our relationship, you're like family, you are, I don't know, brother, dad, whatever. But since I was 13, you and Marcia has been everything to me. And I don't want to tell y'all how old I am today. I'm
19.
many double that, you know what I'm saying? So I just thank you for even thinking to include me, you all, and to be here on my birthday, on Marcia's birthday. Y'all see this love? Who takes their wife's birthday? What wife says take the birthday and come to your sister's class? Look at that one right there. So, people think that I just wrote that in there, and I just really did it. So yeah, I just want to thank you all, but I want to bring the students in to ask some questions because we had a little break in time. So I want to just call in a student to ask some questions.
Hi, my name is Chara Lyons, and the one question I have is if the Black and Brown youth audiences take away any messages from the book and film, what would you like them to take away?
What about you, Angie?
That feels like that's my lane. Like I feel like for the past couple of years, that's what I've been trying to do. It always irks me when people are like, Angie, you're the voice for young people. I'm like, no, they have their own voices. All I want to be is a microphone to amplify them, make them even louder. And that's what I hope they take away from this book, from this film, their power, that they have voices. If you're not old enough to vote, you still have power. If you're a young person, if you're a Gen Z, you're some of the most powerful people in the world. Like, do you guys realize how much you affect trends with the, slang you create, with the way you wear your clothes, with the TikTok dances, all these different things? You have so much power, even beyond that, on social justice levels. You have so much power. Every single civil rights movement we've had in this country has been led by young people. Yeah. When we talk about Dr. King a lot, we think of him as an old man. Dr. King wasn't even 40 when he was killed, like he was young when he started the work. All these movements were started by students and young people. And so the same power that they had resides in you. And I hope that with this election coming up, I hope young people are voting, because if nothing else, keep in mind that if you're not voting, you're giving more power to people who won't be in this world 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now than you're giving to yourself. So the stuff that they're setting up for now is stuff you'll have to deal with, and they'll be long gone. So who do you want to make the decisions regarding that?
But Angie be dropping all the historical facts. You want to teach actually, I'm gonna have you come in and teach a guest lecture in my class, because you have all the history. And I know that we have some other students that want to come in. Thank you so much for that, Chara. Hello. Whoa.
What's up, y'all?
Hey.
Oh, okay, I'm going up. All right, so we have a question from the audience. Let's see. Yes, so Carl Young asks, okay. So what would be the differences between the endings of the book versus the endings of the film adaptation?
Ooh, that can be George.
No, I'll let Angie take that one.
Angie?
Okay, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, the big ending, I think, is the big difference is the ending with, the end where we see the scene with Sakani. That's not in the book, and it's one of those scenes that I wish I did in the book because of the power in it. It's the scene that every time we did a screening or I went to the movies to watch the film with just everybody else, with the public, it was the scene that got the biggest and loudest reaction out of the audience.
I cry every time. Still today.
It is the one. That scene is definitely, it's not in the book. And again, I wish I would have put it in the book. I remember emailing my editor after I read the script, and I was like, I know the book is out now, but can we? She's like, no, but then also the ending, the decision with the family deciding at the end of the film to stay in Garden Heights versus the book where they moved. When they did early screenings of the film with test audiences, people were like, why are they leaving? I feel like they should stay. It doesn't feel right that they leave, and so there was the decision made to let them stay. And honestly, when people ask me about it, I feel it could have gone either way. I think it's realistic for them to stay. I think it's realistic for them to leave. So, those are the two big differences from the book and the movie.
Yeah. Something that often I came up with, or people came to me with, is, oh, ending is not realistic. They're like happy that he's going to jail and all of these critiques. But, I want people to understand that there are different levels of understanding. There are people who have cops in their family. There are people who, may not know about defunding the police or all of these things that people are on the ground are talking about. So we need to, in a movie, speak to everyone's level of understanding so we can bring them into the story. But what is really great is the fact that we can imagine, what would our ending be? So the book was different. The movie was different. Now, what would our movement be? What would the end of our movie be at this moment? So yeah, we're gonna take another question, but I've been wanting to say that so much. I use it as a teaching tool. Like, ask every time. We did some sit-ins, not sit-ins, we call them read-ins, and we had the book. And Angie, thank you for donating books to students in South Central. LA Students Deserve activists got books from you, and they sat there and actually read and had a discussion and community organized, and then they got a chance to see the film. And they always talked about the different alternative endings in their freedom dreams of their ending. So thank you, it's a powerful moment. Michaela.
Hi. While we wait for some more questions from the audience, I do have a question of my own that I would like to ask. Starr lives with her parents and with her two brothers, but it seems as if her notion of family seems to extend to her neighbors and even people outside of her bloodline. How does this concept of family amplify the importance of community in the movie? And how does that notion impact the course of action that they take as a community after Khalil's death?
That's a good one.
Go ahead, George. They're gonna say, Angie, Karan, you got something for it? Because y'all can't keep cutting it to Angie.
No, that was always set up in the book. I always love that because we always meet Mr. Rubin. We meet the guys in the neighborhood. We meet, it's so many different characters there. And it kind of reminds me of any community that you're born in. There's the church, there's the barbershop, there's the liquor store, all these different people and all the neighbors all next door. And it's a sense of family, it's a sense of belonging. And that is what the dilemma, which I love. People always say the movie always starts when Khalil gets shot. That is not true. Like, for me, the movie starts when Starr is in school and this white kid jumps in front of her and skips her in the lunch room, and she doesn't say anything. That's a character who's not using her voice, who's really changing who she really is. That is the dilemma, the central dilemma of the character. And being who you are is in your community, in your neighborhood. She was a different person at school, and she was a different person in her community. And she was able to find her voice, and community is part of that. I remember a conversation early on I had with Angie. I said, Angie, she has a white boyfriend, and then at the end of the movie, she speaks up, she has her voice. Which one, and Angie says she can be both. And I was like, as long as she's real inside. And I think that's really where it comes down to, is the community is owning where you are and owning the people around you, but be who you really are. And that's the story that I wanted to tell. And that was something that was always built inside the book.
Authenticity. So I want y'all to know that George is obsessed with authenticity. I don't know if you know this, but that's what you always send me a text message or you call me. I just want to know if this is real. Since I was a kid, it's like, is this what the young people say, Shamell? And so that authenticity is like actually my favorite part about you as a director and a writer and all of the things, producer. You always look for, is this what is real? Would you really say that? And you always keep it real. So I appreciate that.
Well, it always starts where I think one of the biggest things early on was the protests, in the movie. And as a director, I have seen protests in films before, and I just felt like it felt fake. It just didn't feel real. It didn't feel like the community that I was seeing in Baltimore or in Charlotte. how these things started, who's actually there, where they coming from, why they in the bikes, who's got the signs, why there are certain white ladies there, why all these individuals. And I think the really superheroes that are in this movie are all those people in Atlanta that came out for like 5-6 nights. And, you know, and they were not background, they were actors, and we gave them backstories and why they were there. And they came ready and really being specific. And you were very helpful in that, Shamell, in breaking that down. That's being authentic and being real. And we shot so much material and I couldn't put it all in. But on the Blu-ray, you'll see like a 30-minute version of that because everybody was so there and so committed. And I just feel like there's the only way you can really make a movie like this is being authentic. So
the crazy thing, I'm going to jump to Awo, but do you remember that I happened to be going to a funeral the same weekend as you were shooting the protest scene? Angie, I was not supposed to be there. So say Johnny, I don't know if y'all saw the little kid, is George's godson, bouncing in the protest because he's been in the protests from BLM from the very beginning. He was at the first one in the stroller. So the fact that it just all seems so divine that I happened to be in Atlanta for you shooting the protest scene. And I was not trying to get in there, but say Johnny just wanted to be, he said, I want to be famous. And so you put him in the scene, put him on a little shirt, and then you're like, you got to get in there with him. So it's just all of this authenticity was just bred into it. And so that's what I want others to kind of know and know about you as a director. But Awo, can you please jump into the next question from the audience?
For sure. So the next question we have is, would the film be any different today in light of the protests over George Floyd?
Go ahead. No, yeah, you go.
I think it's Karen's time.
Yeah.
That's a great question. I think that what's heartbreaking is that it probably wouldn't be a lot that was different because we're still dealing with the same issues, I think, that were put forth. I remember when the film came out, the response was so interesting to me because it's a film that I am incredibly proud to be a part of. And I think that it is so authentic. It's so powerful. I don't think people were really ready for what they were going to experience and how they were going to feel. It speaks to the heart of who you are. Like you can't, when I went, outside of like industry stuff, I took my mom and dad, my nieces and nephews, my sisters, even my baby niece, right? And everybody was able to enter into this space and connect with what was going on. And so it's beautiful in that way, but it's also heartbreaking because what does that say about who and where we are? And if something this powerful doesn't change what's happening in our hearts and in our world, what does it take? So yeah, I think that this was part prophecy, part revelation. If you were unaware, it was part catharsis for us to actually be in a space to see and experience and receive and hear our truth done so beautifully, but also like maybe part warning because you reap what you sow, more than you sow, later than you sow. So yeah, I got to sit with that question, but I don't know what would be different, honestly. I don't know.
Go ahead, Michaela.
Okay, we have another question from the audience from Talik. It says, with growing awareness to colorism within the media, I was wondering what y'all's thoughts and or opinions are on the decision to cast Starr, one of the most visible characters, as a light-skinned actress. And then if you could as well, generally give us some more insight into your choices for casting, that would be great.
Angie, you have a good story about, you always thought of Starr. I mean, I know the backstory because I know it from when it was a book before it was even a film. But go ahead, Angie and Joyce have something to say about this. I know for sure.
Yeah. So there's a lot of people don't know that Amandla was cast for Starr before the book was ever out, before there was ever a cover.
Exactly.
Amandla was Starr. Like Amandla was given the book with my permission. And I think it was it like 2000? late 2015, early 16, George?
Early 16.
Yeah. And so like
January 16th.
Yeah, I've been asked about young actors and actresses who, inspired the character, and Amandla was one of them by far. Amandla has always used their platform to speak up, speak out, make some noise, be heard. I remember the whole "Don't Cash Crop My Cornrows." That blew me away. And as I was writing that character, I thought of Amandla a lot. So when the time came up, the whole process with The Hate You Give being made into a book and then a film was like the most wild time of my life. It happened so fast, but it was like early 2016, I'd say like January 2016. I just maybe signed a book deal in December 2015. And like a month later, here we are talking about possibly a film in the future. And they were like, well, would you love for Amandla to read it? I'm like, heck yeah, I would. And again, this was before the cover was ever made, before there were anything done about a cover. So I will say this, though. Of course, colorism is absolutely a problem in Hollywood. We are not going to sit here and say it's not. It is absolutely a problem in Hollywood. But I can say that from my perspective, and George, you can speak on this more, with Amandla, it was about this young person has lived this life in a lot of ways, because a lot of Amandla's life is reflective in Starr's life. It's not my place to tell that, just from conversations we had. And so it was a lot of factors that went into Amandla being cast as Starr from the very beginning of the process.
Yeah, I mean, she was attached very early on. As soon as I read the book and I met Angie and we sold it to Fox, it hit me right there at that point. It was like, hey, there's an actress attached. And I was like, really? I didn't know that. And I was like, oh, what's her name? Oh, Amandla. Okay, cool. And I met her and I was totally blown away that she was at that young already was like finding projects, already, having conversations, with her agency about being involved with the movie. And once we started doing our tests, for the film, like we just doing some audition tests and screen tests for the studio, she was amazing. And from the beginning, I just felt like from listening to her, that story of a person going to a private school, living in Inglewood, going to a white private school, living two different lives, it was the character. I mean, that's who she was. And she brought a lot of details to that role. And it wasn't an easy role to have, you know what I mean, in terms of the rehearsal time that we have, the preparation, the body behavior, and also the rehearsals and all the, with Regina Hall and with Russell and the family. She was 100% committed. But from the beginning, she went after the book at the same time I was going after it. You know what I mean? And that's really what you want from an artist,
Okay, so I want to wrap it up. And how I usually wrap up in my class is going back to breath, right? And so the root of the word conspire means to breathe together. So I want us to actually close our eyes, and I'm going to ask a final question to the entire audience. And that is, when we're thinking about The Hate You Give in this revolutionary moment that we are right now with this election coming up, I want us to think about love. I know Karen's talked about it so perfectly about our humanity and our love. Now I want us to embody that love. And what's next? I want us to think about how we can create change and how we could use our voice. So let's take a deep breath and breathe that feeling of that freedom that is right on the other side. And let's breathe that in. So let's breathe it in. Hold it. Let's breathe it out. And you can open up your eyes. And that is the end of our family reunion, y'all. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I'm just honored to be here in community and family with you all and love. And just thank you, Angie, for this incredible piece of history. And it's like the past, the present, and future all occurring right now. Thank you, George, for how you brought it to the screen and how, youth have been able to see the Black Panther 10-point program, how they'll be able to see themselves in the power of their name, say Johnny's name, you know, the fact that we're not respectable. There's so many things that we talked about in this amazing conversation that we've had today. And I just want to thank Michaela and Awo for being here, all of our other students and everyone at home. And I want us to just say, Michaela and Awo, can you do me a favor? And what we do is we unmute our mics and we're going to do a thank you bomb to the amazing cast and director. All right. And author. So 5, 6, 7, 8, unmute.
Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all of your knowledge
and we appreciate you. You are incredible. We had such an amazing time today. And we just want to thank you.
I cannot wait to see your book be released in January.
We want to get hooked up too. I want to get hooked up too.
That'd be nice. So we can give you our emails or something.
That's kind of embarrassing, right? To have people thanking you in a bomb. We do that to all our guests in our classroom, by the way. And it's usually like 30 or more students, and they just hear like, thank you, the guests. So
great.
We appreciate you. All right, let's go, y'all. See you later.
See you later.
Happy birthday, Marcia in the back.